Good morning and welcome to the launch of Enterprise Ireland's International Markets Week. Obviously it's being done a little bit differently to usual. I know in the past I've stood here looking at the faces of a couple of hundred of you in your best suits. Well, this year we've had a multiple of that number tuning in online, which is great, wearing God only knows what. But I think that level of interest shows the appetite that's there for exporting, the appetite for business, and the desire on the part of business owners and exporters to overcome the challenges that are out there. And we know they're there, and perhaps they may even be about to get a little bit more difficult as in the coming days and weeks. Now, when it comes to challenges, we are going to talk a little bit later on about precisely what they are and how they can be confronted and supported, and companies can be supported through them. We'll also be hearing from some businesses here on a panel discussion that have navigated those choppy waters very, very well this year and have managed to continue on a very good growth trajectory. Now, when it comes to challenges, whether it's Brexit, COVID-19, climate change, trade wars, global businesses are operating in a new world. It's complex, it's fast-moving, it's turbulent, as you all know, but many Irish companies are responding to that challenge with innovation and resilience, and they are ready for a new world.
So this is it. The new normal. The world is a different place right now. We're living through strange times, where things are changing faster than we can fathom, and things we took for granted are anything but certain. We all have to adapt. Our mindset, our means, our imagination. And Irish companies are leading the way, innovating, exploring, responding, turning adversity into opportunity. Sure, our circumstances have changed, but some things remain constant. Ireland has always lived out here on the edge, so it's in our nature to push boundaries. We've learned to be nimble, to be agile, always reliable, always resilient, always ready. Enterprise Ireland continues to invest in the very best of Irish innovation. And our network of advisors are busy connecting global business leaders with dynamic Irish partners, so that together we can make this new normal a better one. We are ready for a new world.
Well, due to last night's developments, the Taoiseach, who was due to be here, unfortunately cannot make it, but we are delighted to welcome Damien English, who is Minister of State for Business, Employment and Retail. Minister, you're very welcome this morning. I suppose, first of all, the surprise in many quarters of this NFET recommendation about going to level 5, are we going to take that huge step?
Well, exactly. It's a huge step to take, and so the recommendations have to be given some serious consideration. We do know that what's the recommendations from NFET from last night would have very serious, probably long-term as well as short-term consequences for this country and for the operating of the country. And we've come through probably 6 very difficult months for everybody, certainly from a business point of view and a job creation point of view and a growth point of view. So we've a lot to balance that. The 3 party leaders will meet today with the CMO. We'll talk through all those recommendations and the reasons behind that and the science behind that. And then we'll go to Cabinet probably tomorrow at some stage or later tonight. We do understand that, and for the last number of months we've had to work very closely and take on board the NFET advice and to make those decisions. Number 1 priority for government, of course, is to protect public health and people's health. And we've responded, and this country as a whole has come together over the last number of months. And you know, the response to COVID has been quite positive in many areas because the public have been with us on that and behind that as well. So we have to track our way through the months ahead of us as we deal with COVID until we find...
Well, the party leaders are going to discuss the evidence there around making a decision. For example, IBEC, the employer's body, is of the view that at this stage, contemplating such a huge leap, that evidence should be published really, and that there isn't really enough information being published on the basis on which these decisions are being weighed up.
I think when the publication of the Living with COVID plan a few weeks ago, in that we did detail all the various scenarios that are dealt with and the reasons behind that. When certain incidents, the hour rate, the numbers in hospitals, admissions, it's all taken in, as well as the spread of the virus. The difficulty from an EFA point of view is, the virus, no one can predict where it's going to go and how it's going to and what's going to happen. But we do know the numbers are extremely high. So the job of the next couple of days is absolutely to interrogate that advice, to share that advice. We're going to have a lot of, without a doubt, conversations today and tomorrow, trying to analyse this. And it's about making the right decisions, level 3, level 4, level 5. What can the country manage? How can we handle this? But what's needed from a public health point of view as well. And in fairness to the last government and to this government, that is the number one overriding decision, is public health, and then how to manage everything else. So there will be a bit of work to be done with NEFA today to try to work through this, because it is absolutely, the news of a suggestion to go to level 5 took it up by surprise yesterday. We know certainly with all the entrepreneurs and business people online today, will have a major impact for what they're trying to do and for their plans.
Working through it with an effort, does that mean it'll be a negotiation?
No, of course, again, the three party leaders will sit down with the CMO today. That's the first job. And out of that then, there is the structures in place there to go through the Cabinet Committee meeting, which involve all the various stakeholders from the different departments in a room discussing this as well. And then finally we'll go to Cabinet. I mean, that's what has to happen today. NEF would feel very strongly about this. They have the evidence and they have the research. So they'll sit down with Tony Hoolan today and work through that. And we'll see the decision of this tomorrow. But what's clear here is, whatever decisions are made, the government will stand and will support, like we've done for the last number of months. We will step in and support businesses right across the sector.
Will they be additional supports? And there's a lot of strong view that this would be such a huge setback, even level 4, never mind level 5, that there would need to be additional supports and financial supports put in place.
Yeah, and again, I mean,
we've
seen, well, I mean, again, the budget plans have been around that as well. Apart from dealing with Brexit, which will come to as well, COVID, the initial response from government in May, then again in July, those supports are to the tune of about 20 billion of taxpayers' money. We know in government, and certainly in our Department of Jobs and Enterprise, that more resources will be needed to support business and to support jobs, because we have to come through this and to be in a strong position at the end of it. And again, going back to how do you protect the economy, it's also about protecting public health. That, in the long run, will save our economy, but businesses have to be able to get through the next 6 to 9 months as well. And there's been a massive challenge already. We've tried to step in with supports. They've been quite wide-ranging. Naturally, as you look to the budget this year, look to our economic plan in November, and the present situation with COVID, those supports have to be adjusted and targeted in the right way at the sectors that need them. But that's the work we're doing, and that's the work that the Taoiseach, who can't be here today, but he's leading that work at our department as well, trying to make sure that we're targeting supports with our lead agencies like Enterprise Ireland, reaching out to businesses who need that help to get them through this. And events like today, International Markets Week, well, I know it's going on probably 9 or 10 years at this stage, but it's a major part of trying to reach out to those companies who have the opportunity to export and maybe aren't taking it, or those who are exporting and want to expand that and increase their offering. We need to row in there and encourage that and help that, because we will need companies like the 700 plus online today who are doing that for Ireland. We need those companies to be able to continue to trade and to continue to have their ambitious plans, and that's where we're going to have to focus in on.
The economic challenges that are out there are very serious. What's the government's assessment or view about how significant that challenge is for Irish businesses?
They're extremely significant, and there's nobody underestimating that. And we can see the impact on business right throughout the country, certainly on the domestic market. From an export point of view, we're building on the back of 2019, which is an extremely good year for exports at over 25 billion. But you can see even in your own survey of members today, some companies come through this, about a third have increased sales. Another third are kind of steady as you go, the same as, probably with a lot of effort behind that. But then there's a third then that are impacted greatly, and we have to assess that. But on top of that, you have Brexit coming into the mix, and we know that because of Brexit, it's going to impact that trading relationship with the UK, through the UK, and will have cause difficulties again as well. So it's important that we have efforts like today, and we have our 140 advisors right throughout the world opening up new markets for us, working with us on that. And we can see the success. I mean, as you say, what's the opportunities ahead of us? We can see there's different markets opening up. We meet a lot of companies now who mightn't have traded with Germany or Netherlands in the past, but we see exports for the last year up to $1 billion in those countries. So there is opportunities there, but we do know that if companies will need help through that. We talked a lot there in the video about innovation, about investing in innovation and R&D. That decision was made a long time ago in Ireland, and we've been working through all our agencies, Enterprise Ireland and others, to invest taxpayers' money along with private money in that innovation agenda, in the R&D agenda. And that's meant a lot of companies are ready for today's to be able to manage in today's world. But we need to do more of that. And
but isn't one of the problems that many companies have done, they would feel everything that they can, whether it's in innovation, whether it's in exports, whether it's in building a better business, and COVID-19 and the pandemic has just completely come in from nowhere in relation to that. There's a great sense, and I think it comes across in surveys as well, that some companies in some sectors are continuing to grow. But then there are other sectors that are very dramatically going in the other direction. Are we going to see a two-speed economy from this?
Well, nobody wants that two-speed economy recovery, and that's something all our work has to be targeted. That doesn't happen. It is fair to recognise that the domestic market has took a massive wall, certainly when it comes to tourism and hospitality sector. That will take longer to recover, but we'll deal with exports today. There are a number of companies that have, because their markets are shut, or they can't get into them. If you take some of the food sector, in some areas it's harder to reach their customers and so on, and there's less of a demand. Other areas, like certainly the medical devices and so on, and we see John Power later on with his company, how they have the right product for today. And it's about making sure our companies are well placed. But absolutely, Richard, it is fair to say some are going to struggle for longer than others, and that's why we want to try to target our supports. A big part of being able to target supports are to engage with our clients through Enterprise Ireland, through our LEOs and so on, to hear exactly what they need. Some companies will need life support for 6-9 months. Others need money much cheaper, and through the financial powers we have to offer to be able to take on these new markets. So it's a tailored support.
They're not getting life support. That they're not getting enough support.
Of course, some will say that, and you'll always have that, even in non-COVID times. But again, and that's why we'll use the budget. But more importantly, is the economic 5-year recovery plan that we'll launch in November. That will try to respond to each individual sector and reach out to them, because up to now a lot of the supports are being scattergun. They're probably available to all businesses right across the system, like the wage subsidy, like the credit guarantee, different initiatives there, the Restart grant. They're there for everybody, but it's quite clear, and you said it yourself, we will need to try to individualise that into certain sectors, and that's the work we're doing over the next month, 6 weeks, to try to get that right. But government will step up, and we will be there, and we'll do it through our agencies like Enterprise Ireland.
There is a view that the government, it's the right thing to do to borrow what is required to get through what is an economic emergency, and we're still not out of the woods yet. But at some point, there's also a view that we're going to have to start to pay it back and balance the books. Businesses will be concerned that with the very necessary increase in budgets in health and all of those other measures, who's going to pay for it in the future? Will business end up paying for it?
Yeah, and naturally we all share that concern, and it's important that we do manage our way through this prudently. And like a lot of businesses that we deal with, no one wants to borrow, no one really wants to go there. But sometimes it's the right thing to do, and you have to do it. And we are prepared to borrow to grow our way through this COVID crisis and the Brexit difficulties over the next couple of years. We do know that the potential increase to the executive this year is close to 30 billion, a little bit less going on figures. Next year, you're going to have a deficit probably in around 20 billion as well. So the overall cost of COVID could be close to 50 billion by the time of all the different costs of that as well. Luckily, we come into this in a strong financial position. So we're able to borrow money as a nation quite cheaply, and we can invest that wisely and spend that wisely. But we recognise that you can't keep borrowing. And that's why we think the best way in this occasion, which is different to what happened 10 years ago, where you've seen a lot of austerity, we are fully of the belief that we can grow our way through this deficit, and that we can restore our companies and restore job creation quite quickly over the next 18 months to 2 years, and restore the public finances quickly after that. So it is prudent to borrow now, but we can't continue to do that, because that will be putting the cost on somebody in the future. But when money is affordable, there's EU schemes as well that we can avail of. We'll try to spend that money wisely.
You mentioned there about having more targeted supports. Is that something that we can expect to see in the budget, that we will see specific measures for specific sectors, bearing in mind that we may be about to go to a much higher level of restriction, which will really decimate some businesses in some sectors?
Without a doubt, any change to level 3, 4 or 5 will have an impact on business, and will have an impact on the economy and how we spend taxpayers' money. So you will see, of course, that response in the budget, and you've seen it up to date as well. Quite a quick response through most of our departments to respond to COVID. I think for the individual sectors and trying to work out what's needed, I think you'll watch for the economic recovery plan that'll come out in November. That's where we'll try and have that conversation. Yes, the budget will touch on it, and certainly for the last 7 or 8 years, every budget has been a jobs budget, because we had to come through that. We're back to that situation again now of high unemployment. So again, you will see the budget focusing on jobs, focusing on business. But the aim there will be to also set aside a fund that we can use and spend through the economic recovery plan, which will be published in November. The Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, Micheál Martin, the Taoiseach and many others have all said that we will have engagement with the various sectors, with all the different businesses, through all the agencies, through all the very representative bodies over the next month, 6 weeks, as we prepare that November plan. But that's the key part, that we get that, and that will deal with COVID. It will deal with the Brexit fallout.
Brexit is coming. It's very much on the way. Some businesses have prepared well, others still have a lot to do and may have concerns about that. What's the government's view at the moment about whether or not there will be a deal, and if there is some kind of trade deal, what sort of obstacles will businesses still face?
Yeah, again, Richard, I think people have been through so much this year with COVID, and I really feel for anybody in business trying to plot their way through this and to make investment decisions, very, very difficult. On top of that, you have Brexit. The majority of companies that we deal with through our agencies are prepared as best they possibly can and have availed of the time over the last couple of years to get ready. Some have not. So first of all, I would say to anybody who hasn't looked at their business operation, please use the next 90 days to get Brexit ready. Engage with all our agencies, put your hand up, ask for the help, for the direction, for the advice. Government will respond, but we need you to come forward, because we can't find every company who needs help. And that's about understanding your supply chain, understanding where your products are coming from or where they're going to, understanding who certifies your products, and then being ready for customs, because regardless of what happens over the next couple of weeks in relation to trade deals and trade talks, we are going to have a customs situation come the 1st of January. And again, that's going to be very, very complicated for some businesses, and something they never had to deal with before. Even when I was coming through college and studying accountancy, customs were early, at that stage, their impact had nearly eased away. But now it's going to be very difficult for companies to have to be understanding that. Like I say, many are ready, some are not. Please engage. What's going to happen over the next couple of weeks? We're still hopeful of some sort of a trade deal, but at this stage, you know, to really have a really positive trade deal, it's not looking likely. We're still remaining positive that we can get some trade deal, which will enable us to continue to trade in a good relationship way with the UK. That's going to be very difficult, and no matter what happens, I mean, we've always said there's no good outcome to Brexit. But these weeks, I think, okay, the talks mightn't have went as well as we hoped last week, but there was over the weekend more communications from the major players, and I think there will be an effort made to bring this together in the next month. What I would say to you, though, from an EU point of view, we have to be very careful with the future trading relationship. You know, the level playing field is about making sure that business can trade fairly, not just the next couple of years, but looking 10, 15 years down the line. And so these talks are very, very important.
Looking further afield, there are many businesses watching this morning, and part of the whole goal is to broaden that market diversification and look at new markets. They look around, they see a lot of economic uncertainty. In a lot of these markets, they also see possibly some opportunities. Where do you think that growth might come from Irish exporting businesses?
Well, again, it's funny, what helped us prepare for COVID was getting ready for Brexit for the last probably 4 or 5 years, since 2016. There's been a diversification strategy implemented by Enterprise Ireland and many others as well to try to focus the minds away from the UK market and to look at other opportunities. And a reference that we've had some great success in markets in France, in Germany, in the Netherlands, but there's more opportunity beyond that as well. We are trying to say to a lot of our client companies, you know, look at the opportunity, and we recognise that still the majority of companies in Ireland don't export, and there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential there. So we want to try to find them, work with them, which is through Enterprise Ireland, through the LEOs, through our local authorities, and encourage them to do that. But we really do trying to encourage somebody to take on a big challenge like exporting during COVID, during Brexit, is a difficult time. But very often difficult times are the times to make plans. I would say, if you look at the companies that are going to address us here today, they've made plans over the last 7 or 8, 9 years to pump money into talent, into innovation, into new ideas, trying to guess where the market might be. And all of a sudden now they have products that are available during COVID. When we set out to do Innovation 2020 back in 15 and 16 in our department, which is basically the science strategy to target investment in R&D into innovation, we didn't know what COVID was coming. We didn't even know Brexit at that stage. But you have to adapt, and Irish companies have shown that resilience. So there's opportunities out there. We will support. Last thing I will say, Richard, the whole idea of today is to engage with our people on the ground in all these countries. I mean, there's over 40 countries here, that we have 140 people on behalf of the state working, and let's use that engagement today.
And to use it and throughout the week. Minister of State Damien English, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Well, I'm delighted to welcome here on stage Julie Sinnamon, Chief Executive of Enterprise Ireland.
Thank you, Richard, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to our first ever virtual International Markets Week. I'd like to start by thanking Minister English for joining us at very short notice. I know that Taoiseach's schedule changed late last night, so we really appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning for this big event. I'd also like to thank our panellists. We have a great lineup for you this morning. We have Tim and Nicola and Kevin and John, and they're going to share their experience with you, which will be fantastic. A special welcome to my colleagues in the 40 international offices around the world for Enterprise Ireland, and also colleagues from Enterprise Ireland throughout Ireland. So you're all very welcome. And last but by no means least, a special welcome to the 700 plus clients who've tuned in this morning. It's really fantastic to have you here, and hopefully you'll find it beneficial and interesting. I'm going to start off this morning by looking back briefly. We're now entering Q4 of the final year of our strategy. I don't think I need to tell anybody here how difficult a year and how unprecedented 2020 has been. However, the good news is that Enterprise Ireland client companies started 2020 in a strong position. If I look briefly at the results for 2019 and where we were coming into 2020, jobs, we had achieved over 55,000 new jobs against a target of 60,000, ahead of target. Exports, 25.6 billion exports, record levels of exports from everybody who's tuned in here this morning. Fantastic result, well done. Thirdly, and this is a really important metric, is the spend in the economy in towns and villages across Ireland, 29.3 billion, really creating wealth and prosperity around the country, ahead of target. The last metric is the spend on R&D, where we had set a target to grow it by 50% by 2020. We're behind target at this stage. It's challenging, but we are making good progress. The exports, which I talked about, record levels of growth, 8% growth, a great performance. Interesting to see that the UK, despite all the challenges of Brexit, continued to grow at 2%. We've had a specific focus over the last few years on the Eurozone. We saw 15% growth in 2019. Again, great to see the traction happening after a lot of focus on that market. It is our number 2 export market. The objective is to change the mindset so that people think Eurozone, they think an extension of the domestic market, and we are beginning to see that happening in terms of the results following through. So really a great result. We've talked about changing the footprint of Irish exports. This is about not walking away from the UK market. We've continued to grow the UK market, but it's about growing the rest of the world at a faster rate. The good news is, at this stage, 69% of exports from Enterprise Ireland clients are outside of the UK. So we are seeing a much greater balance in that portfolio of markets, and it's a great performance. So again, well done to everyone. So where did those exports come from? Construction, 19%, a fantastic result. We also saw the fintech exports growing at 19%. Digital technologies, really important at this time, 11%. And life sciences, again, a really critical sector at any time, but particularly now, 13% growth. So we have seen strong growth across most sectors. Food is our largest sector, 3% growth, a really good performance in terms of the challenges in the food sector. I don't need to tell anybody here about how 2020 has differed from 2019. There is no shortage of challenges. It's a very different year. The good news is we came into it in a strong position. However, a lot of challenges. I'm going to focus this morning, though, on 2 key challenges. Number 1 is COVID-19, and secondly is Brexit. So if we look at COVID-19 first and the impact. Within the Enterprise Ireland client base, we have 1,000 clients who employ over 70,000 people who are impacted directly by COVID-19. 40,000 of those jobs are regionally critical clients. So really important for us to focus on supporting you at this time. 270 companies are not only impacted by COVID, but also by Brexit, which is coming down the tracks. and those companies employ over 20,000 people. So a lot of our focus is on working on companies who are impacted on either COVID or Brexit. Over the last 6 months, a number of supports have been introduced both by Enterprise Ireland and through the various wider government supports to address the challenges of COVID. I'm not going to go through all of these, you'll be glad to know, but let me just touch on 2 of them. Number 1 is the Business Financial Planning Grant. The feedback we got from you was that companies were looking for support to help put together a financial plan. This was support in order to help you to be able to talk to your banks, to your VCs, to your private equity companies, etc. So there is a funding instrument of 5,000 grant, 100% support to help you with that task. A substantial number of companies have availed of that, over 800 at this stage. Sustaining Enterprise Fund was introduced. One of the bits of feedback was that there was a reluctance from companies to take on repayable funding. So in July, in the stimulus package, the government changed the Sustaining Enterprise Fund to allow for a non-repayable element. So at this stage, we have a 120 million fund, and a non-repayable grant of up to 200,000, 50%, up to 50% of the funding is in a non-repayable grant. This funding is provided under a relaxed state aid guideline, which expires at the end of December. So I would encourage you, if you haven't applied for this funding at this stage, it can help to accelerate your recovery, and the funding is available. So it's there, and we'd ask you to come forward. What we're going to hear from at this stage is a number of companies who have used the Sustaining Enterprise Fund, and you'll hear from them as to how they've used the fund.
The funding we received from Enterprise Ireland allowed us to stabilise our cash flow. In so doing, we concentrated on developing new solutions for a post-COVID world. It also gave ourselves and the whole team the confidence to go forward and execute on those solutions.
Obviously, funding is really important from a working capital perspective. Due to COVID-19, our sales were severely impacted. The Sustaining Enterprise Fund has helped us to keep going and allowed us to continue to support our customers. Thanks to Enterprise Ireland, we have a plan for the future.
The Sustaining Enterprise Fund gave us the cash to support our existing business and invest in new products. We've been able to fund further web development, but most importantly, we can sustain our business, stay afloat, and stay in the game until the recovery comes.
What you've heard from there is a number of examples, but the common theme is innovation. Each of these companies using the fund, innovating to deal with the COVID-19 issue. Ireland has recently been recognised by the OECD as 5th in the world for exports of COVID-19 related goods. A lot of those exports come from the multinational companies that are here, particularly in the medtech sector. But there are some really great examples of Irish companies who are contributing to that performance. Nearform. I'm not sure whether all of you have downloaded the app for contact tracing, a really important app. It has succeeded in Ireland in terms of being of great benefit, but Nearform's response has been appreciated and being purchased by governments around the world. So really great innovation from a young Irish company. Castus. We all know the issues with regard to the spread of COVID-19. Castus have a COVID-19 resistant surface coating, and this is getting great traction globally. Aerogen, a great innovator in the drug delivery system. I'm not going to talk about Aerogen because John Power from the company is joining us later this morning, and he'll talk to you about what Aerogen have done in response to COVID. Second key challenge, as I mentioned earlier, is Brexit. Since 23rd of June 2016, Enterprise Ireland have been working with companies across Ireland in order to respond to the Brexit challenge. At this stage, as the Minister said earlier, 1st of January is fast coming, 89 days to the 1st of January 2021. When I stood at Markets Week last year, I said it's 100 days until Brexit. There was an extension, but we now know the die is cast. The 1st of January, the UK leaves the European Union. So it's really important, if you haven't done your planning, that you need to use the next 89 days to get ready. It's about having a no-regrets approach to Brexit to make sure you're in the best shape possible on the 1st of January. Over the last 2 years, we have approved 125 million in funding through Brexit supports. We've had over 1,000 companies participating in our advisory clinics. 1,500 plus companies have gone onto our online training course in order to deal with customs. And there's been a massive campaign by our communications team to make sure that companies are taking the correct steps and aware of the wide range of supports that are available. A survey has been completed recently looking at a group of 600 companies. 42% of the companies that we've spoken to have said that they are either fully or significantly ready for Brexit. That's good. That does mean, though, that over half of the companies surveyed do not have a fully or significant response. So it's not too late, 89 days until the 1st of January. 75% of the companies have identified customs and logistics as a major issue. And that is why in the July stimulus, the government gave us permission to introduce a new Ready for Customs grant. This allows you to get up to €9,000 support to take an employee on to deal with all of the declarations and to deal with the customs issue. That is available, and if you aren't aware of it, I'd suggest you come forward. It's a really great scheme. I now want to let you hear from one company, Mullen Lighting, 250 yards from the border, so they certainly need to have a Brexit response, and they've done a lot of work in that area. So Mike is going to tell you about what they've done in Mullen Lighting.
My name is Mike Traynor and I am the Managing Director of Mullen Lighting. 2020 saw a lot of focus on COVID-19, but we can't ignore the reality of Brexit. We're currently revising our plans and preparations. We need to trade smoothly with and through Britain post 1st of January. The UK is still a vital part of our expansion plans going forward. We are giving preparations, especially customs preparations, the priority they deserve. My advice is get informed, revise your plan and be ready for Brexit. Avail of the support, advice and training available from Enterprise Ireland.
In preparation for today, we reached out to all of the people registered for International Markets Week to get a feel for what your outlook is for 2021 and what your experience is. A third of the companies that we talked to, who are listening here this morning, have seen decreased exports so far in 2020. 32%, however, have said that their exports have increased, and 35% are stable. So quite a range of experience depending on the sector and the product or service that companies have. 56% of companies have indicated that you plan to increase exports and add jobs in 2021. So quite a bit of optimism in that regard. 85% of companies, however, have said that you expect that your costs will increase by up to 10% as a result of Brexit. So the steps to mitigate that, obviously, and a key theme of our event this morning, is virtual selling. Innovation, again, you've heard that through each of the speakers this morning, and you will hear it a lot from the panel in terms of the importance of innovation. Customer engagement, more important than ever. Because you can't get into the market doesn't mean that you don't engage with your clients, and a lot of work has been done in terms of helping to prepare Irish companies to continue that engagement virtually. And obviously, diversification, more diversification, spreading the risk. We have 40 offices internationally available to help you with your diversification plans. In addition, Like yourselves, Enterprise Ireland has had to change how we do business. We've had to increase our digital engagement with all of you and with buyers across the world. We've run a series of market insights e-zines. These have been really greatly received by companies who can't get into the market and are hungry to get direct information from people within the marketplace. A range of sectoral webinars going through what's happening in the key sectors. I've mentioned virtual selling. A lot of work has been done with us helping you to prepare for your virtual selling. Digital masterclasses. How do you develop relationships online? How do you close deals? What about technical selling? So there's a great range of webinars that we have run and continue to run. And digital promotion was important before COVID-19, even more important today. We have reached out and got to over 2 million buyers through our global online digital shop window, the Irish Innovation. Virtual buyer engagements have also taken place in a number of marketplaces and virtual trade missions. Again, it's about us innovating to make sure we're getting to the appropriate buyers around the world to help you. I'm now going to give you a brief insight as to how that Irish Advantage programme looks around the world and some examples of great Irish companies. So, we've heard about COVID-19 and the various supports available to help you, particularly with the liquidity issues that you have. Brexit, 89 days to go. It isn't too late. Really important that you're ready and you have a no regrets policy. And market diversification, the focus for this major International Markets Week, this virtual International Markets Week. It is, because of the challenges that you're all facing, the most important Markets Week we've ever had. Over the course of the next few days, there's over 2,000 meetings between companies in Ireland and our team of buyers, 150 overseas staff around the world. There's 720 companies have registered for the event, and it's all about us working with you to understand your needs and help with your market diversification strategies. So, a lot of work ahead for the next few days. I'm going to pass over to Richard, and we have a great lineup and a great event this morning. Hopefully you'll find it interesting and beneficial. And now over to you, Richard. Thank you.
Julie, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Julie. And one of the things that Julie Sinnamon talked about there was Brexit. It hasn't gone away. It's very much coming right at us. And earlier I caught up with RTE's Europe editor, Tony Connolly, to assess what the state of play is with the negotiations.
If there is a deal, it's likely to be quite a light or narrow deal. Obviously still better from an Irish business point of view, an exporter's point of view, than no deal. But what might that deal look like for Irish companies exporting to the UK or to continental Europe across the land bridge?
Well, initially, both sides were talking about a highly ambitious free trade agreement, and the EU said, look, we're offering the UK something we have never offered any other third country trade partner around the world. That is a zero tariff, zero quota free trade agreement. Now, over time, the EU's demands in terms of what the UK would have to sign up to in order to get that ambitious free trade agreement or that high access into the single market, the UK has been less and less willing to sign up to what the EU is looking for, and a lot more keen to move away from the EU's regulatory orbit. And so ultimately, in simple terms, the lower the willingness to be part of the EU's regulatory orbit, then the lower the ambition of the free trade agreement. So that means we're going to end up with what they're calling a skinny free trade agreement. Zero tariffs and zero quotas, yes, but in services and across a lot of other areas, like, for example, the REACH directive, the whole sphere of chemicals, the UK will have to create a whole chemical registration apparatus from scratch. We heard some evidence in the House of Commons this week that it would cost the chemicals industry in the UK £1 billion with no tangible benefit. So you can see how, yes, if they do get a deal over the line, it's going to be a lot better than no deal, but it's still going to be not great, and certainly nothing like the fluidity of trade that we have at the moment. For Irish companies, if there had been no deal, of course, you would have very high tariffs on agriculture, some engineering products as well, as far as I'm aware. So, of course, a free trade agreement would be beneficial to agricultural products going across to the UK. But again, there is still going to be regulatory barriers, and if you as a company require British inputs into your manufacturing process, then you're going again to face regulatory checks and controls on goods coming into Ireland and even coming into Northern Ireland because of the protocol.
Tony, it's been impossible to predict the outcome of this all the way along. If you were a betting man, do you think there'll be a deal?
I kind of wax and wane on this from day to day, hour to hour. But if you look back to the beginning of the negotiations, people were saying, look, it took the EU and Canada 7 years to negotiate a free trade agreement. They have come an awfully long way, and in a lot of areas they have reached, let's say, provisional agreement or understandings, especially on goods and services. But the big issues that are holding things up are issues of real philosophy and concepts like sovereignty and so on. And that's why they have been so very difficult. But at least we have now narrowed the field down to these 4 or 5 key areas: fisheries, which is more iconic than anything else, the level playing field, state aid, police and judicial cooperation, and of course the dispute resolution mechanisms, which the EU will insist are absolutely critical and absolutely needed across the board. One, I think, hint that the UK is keen to get an agreement is that they've been very keen on pushing for this tunnel, this media-free, leak-free environment of negotiating the space where they can get things moving towards an agreement. One reason why they're keen on that is that if they are going to make concessions to the EU, then they want to do that in an unobtrusive, unostentatious way, because they are always worried about getting flack from the right wing of the Conservative Party, from the British media. So the more they can make these concessions in a tunnel environment, the better for Boris Johnson. But the problem is that the EU doesn't want to go into the tunnel until it's got some of these key concessions in the bank from the UK. They don't want to go into a tunnel, kick around in the dark and find out that both sides are still quite far apart.
Tony Connolly, thank you very much for joining us.
Now we're going to move on to our panel discussion, and I'm delighted to be joined by 4 business people, one of them here in studio, 3 are joining us by web link. In studio here we have Tim Houston, who is CEO of Global Shares, and we're also joined online then by Nicola Mitchell, who is CEO of Life Scientific, by Kevin Brennan, CEO of ModuBuild, and John Power, CEO of Aerogen. And we're also joined for the panel discussion by Julie Sinnamon of Enterprise Ireland. So you're all very welcome. Tim, if I could start with you, just give us a bit of an appraisal there of Global Shares. What do you do?
Sure. Good morning. So Global Shares is based in Clonakilty, West Cork, and we are on track to be, our aim is to become West Cork's first unicorn, $1 billion company. We have an amazing team of 370 people, which in 4 years we're going to grow to 1,000. And Global Shares is a fintech company, and we manage employee share options and make them simpler for employees and employers around the world. We're one of only 3 global providers and the only independent global provider focusing on this market. It's been an interesting journey, and we've had some ups and downs, but it's been a great journey. In 2015, we launched our platform and became a global broker, and we've never looked back. So I'm delighted to be here today, and I just want to pay tribute to Enterprise Ireland for all their advice and help over the years. And I'm looking forward to the next couple of days. Thank you, Richard.
Jim, thank you very much. You may well be a unicorn in West Cork, but there could be 1 or 2 already and they haven't told us about it yet. I wouldn't rule it out. Nicola Mitchell, CEO of Life Scientific, you're very welcome. Tell us a bit about the business.
Thank you, Richard. So we set up in '95 as a contract research business serving several verticals, but particularly agrochemicals. Agrochemicals are used by farmers to protect crops from disease. So then, in line with strategy and with the help of Enterprise Ireland, and especially the Stanford Leadership for Growth programme, we pivoted the business in 2009 time and said goodbye to our multinational clients for whom our R&D services were important, and we launched to become the next Syngenta. You know, our industry is an oligopoly of 3 big, very professional multinationals, each of which have 6,000 scientists. So we feel we're in really elevated company. And since 2012, when we launched our first product, we've gone from being a 2 million company to a 60 million company. We have commercial structures throughout Europe. We source raw material from China with our partners there. We have a very, very close and strategic purchasing platform there in China. We're currently preparing regulatory submissions for North and South America. So and there's 80 wonderful people punching well above their weight, and it's a mix between the best of Irish scientists and then coupled with these ex-multinational people who've elevated us, and largely from a French multinational, Rhône-Poulenc. That's us.
Nicola, thank you very much. Kevin Brennan, CEO of ModuBuild, tell us a bit about the business.
ModuBuild was established in 2006 by myself and my business partner, John Comerford. Back in the early days, we were a very small company operating locally in the modular construction market. I guess now we've grown into an international construction and engineering company. We specialise in high-tech modular construction. We're headquartered in Kilkenny, and we have a manufacturing facility in Castlecomer. We have 2 main strands to our business. We do on-site modular construction on large projects across Europe, mainly Northern Europe, for multinational clients, and we do off-site modular construction in our facility in Castlecomer, where we design and build facilities for the likes of life sciences and data centres, likes of laboratories and whatnot. We build the facilities in our factory and ship them to wherever in the world. We export. About 70% of our turnover is export. We're working, I think we've done projects in about 10 countries to date: Netherlands, Finland, Sweden, Belgium, countries like that. Enterprise Ireland have been a great help to us on the journey. We entered the Netherlands market in 2015, won a large project there at the time. I think our turnover was around 1.5 million at the time, and we've grown about 60% year on year since we started working internationally. So I think this year we expect turnover to be around 34 million. We expect it to go to about 50 million within the next year. So Enterprise Ireland have been a huge help in terms of funding for hiring and recruiting people, and also the local advisors on the ground in the different countries helping us with contacts and setting up offices and whatnot. We have about 300 people working on our projects. We've absolutely amazing people working with us. So the future looks very good.
Kevin, thank you very much. And John Power of Aerogen, tell us a bit about what you do.
Yes, hello Richard. Yeah, Aerogen are an aerosol drug delivery company. So we specialise in the acute care market, working with our partners, both the multinationals and independent distributors, in supplying what is now the world's leading method for aerosolizing drugs to ventilated patients. So you can imagine we've been quite busy during this period of COVID. We do all our R&D here in Galway, and we have manufacturing predominantly in Ireland, probably 90% of our manufacturing in Ireland. And we employ 300 people, 200 here in Galway, and another 100 in our commercial offices spread throughout the world. And we have a biopharma, specialty pharma group as well, with an office in California, who works with our team here as we intend moving up the chain from being purely drug delivery systems into a specialty pharma provider.
Okay. John, thank you very much for that. Tim, if I could go to you first. Obviously, the whole question of COVID-19 and the possibility of greater restrictions coming into play. How has your business got through, or how has it been disrupted by COVID-19 up to now? And what might a higher level of restriction mean for the company?
Well, I suppose we've been pretty lucky. So in 2019, we worked with all our employees, that's 370 of them, to make sure they could work remotely. So when it came in March to work remotely, that wasn't too much of a problem. In terms of...
just decided to give that a go as an option?
Yes, because we moved every employee to a laptop and we practiced working at home. And some of that was because in West Cork, sometimes we lose electricity. There's different reasons, but it was a strategy, not looking at COVID, but it was, I suppose, pretty lucky. In terms of new business, this has been our best new business year ever. And so up to August, we've won more new business than we did in the previous year. But our worry is the pipeline for the future. My salespeople tell me it's okay, but for the last 9 months, we've had my field sales team locked up. So we've implemented a number of digital strategies because we're looking for our pipeline for 21 and 22 to make sure it's robust. I'm not just believing what my salespeople are telling me.
Now, when it comes to finding new business and new customers, I mean, you have already signed up, some of the biggest companies in the world, whether they're listed or private, and you have quite a diversity of markets that you're selling into.
Yeah, so our strategic plan is we focus on the 4 largest economies in the world. So China, Japan, North America, and Europe. And we try and just stick with those markets. Actually, during lockdown, we won the largest company in the world, which is a company in Saudi Arabia. So ostensibly, that was won over the phone. There were a couple of meetings just before the lockdown. So we're really pleased to win that. But normally we wouldn't enter other regions because there's a lot of preparatory work for compliance, IT, operations, opening offices to work out how to enter into a new market.
You must be very good on the phone, Tim, are you?
Yeah, I've got a team that's good on the phone, not me.
Right. Now, just talking about COVID-19, John Power, obviously your drug distribution system goes into ventilators. And at the very beginning of COVID-19, there was this scramble to manufacture more ventilators. Just tell us about how you managed that and what it meant.
Yes, Richard. So actually I was with Julie over at the Enterprise Ireland group at the America Ireland Forum over in Washington just before St. Patrick's Day. And I guess for us it was all our multinational partners. As you imagine, there was a scramble, as you say, for ventilators globally. Initially, certainly, as the main treatment response for patients with COVID, advanced COVID. So all of the major manufacturers of ICU ventilators use our equipment inside. We're kind of an Intel inside, if you like. and then they utilise our drug delivery system in conjunction with their ventilator. So we were getting orders. We shipped to 70 countries around the world anyhow, but we were getting orders in from all the major markets, from all the major OEM suppliers, from our distributors, and in our direct markets of Germany and the UK. So really, really hectic times. I think when I flew back from Washington, in the 2.5 weeks following that, from mid-March, we received the equivalent of half a year's orders of the previous year. So that kind of puts it in perspective. And no company has 80% capacity sitting there unutilized. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in business for very long. So you can imagine kind of a mad scramble for us to try and increase our output. So we introduced new lines, packing lines. We had people from our offices working on accountants, scientists working on the production lines, packing boxes for weeks, just try and relieve some of the pressure from our main manufacturing areas.
When you look at the ramping up of ventilator manufacture that occurred in a very short space of time, and you were to the pin of your collar trying to deal with that, you would have won new business and new clients from that. What does that mean for that part of the business over the next few years? I mean, will that grow further because of those new clients, or have a lot of ventilators now been made?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ventilators being made. So, you've got to think for ventilator manufacturers, it might be a lean period over the next number of years. However, for Aerogen, our technology is used we have a consumable product, single patient use product that's used with the ventilator. So what it will mean is our systems are available to more users throughout the world. So yeah, it'll increase our user base, install base significantly, I think.
Okay. Now, Nicola, Tim's clients are large companies around the world. John's Aerogen clients are large multinational companies doing things like making ventilators and so forth. Kevin's ModuBuild, he's building data centers for large multinationals. You actually take on large multinationals, don't you?
I shouldn't have told you that, Richard, but yeah, and it's not, I'm not being belligerent or anything or aggressive, or it's just there's in an oligopoly in agrochemicals where, governments aren't paying for farmers' inputs, unlike pharmaceuticals. So there really isn't, streamlined regulatory systems for generics. I don't think they've even heard the word generic in Germany. And so we had to step up to the mark to, redress that imbalance between an oligopoly of 3 multinationals and farmers needing competition. They need to be competitive. So we did that. So we went to court, supported actually by the German government, because again, in our industry, I from my perspective, the rules are written by the multinationals for the multinationals. So there's an opening for a voice that represents competition. Multinationals need to focus on new molecules. They have no business in old ones, and we're advocating for the old for them to redirect their efforts with new molecules, and so we spent about $1.5 million with a lawyer. Now it didn't, and I was very purposeful about that. I didn't want it to take over our company, so I dealt with it externally with the lawyer, very simply. And we spent about $1.5 million. We've 22 live cases. We went to court 5 times. We won 5 times. First time in 50 years to overrule the environmental agency veto in Germany. And then, so we went 2 years ago. We launched Life Scientific Germany and went to 10 million sales very, very quickly. So
now,
it's
one of the things, Nicola, that you have done that has helped in growing your business is the partnership that you've had with the French company. How important has establishing that partnership and a shareholding been in winning new business in new markets?
Yeah, well, so at the end of 2014, I sold half the business in exchange for market access in France, which used to be the third, biggest agrochemical market in the world. And in Vivo, I sold it to the co-op. Again, it was a 6 billion euro co-op with 5,000 employees. And, so without this, we wouldn't have jumped from 2 to 60 million. So we've a very healthy business in France and a very healthy partnership. For me, the single biggest, most important thing we can get right as a virtual type company who invests in R&D and sales and marketing alone is to be able to find partners, the best partners with whom we can, work with the best and go fast. And that's been a great poster child for our global expansion.
Okay.
So if there's one thing, we like to think we're brilliant scientists, but really, for me, the more important thing is our culture of good, open, relationship building partnerships. And that's not just the customer. It's the 50% shareholder. It's the supplier, and it's of course our employees. So we do shared leadership. We do margin share with our customers. So we do knowledge share. We hang around a lot of really big thinking people.
They're all things that have been working well for you, Nicola. And we can go back to some of those. Kevin Brennan on ModuBuild. The data center business globally is a huge growth business. Ireland has done well in relation to it. We have a lot of factors and things going in our favour. But how has it been? How have you managed to expand and win new business in new markets?
Yeah, the data center industry is it's a very active industry, and even with the current times we're in with COVID and everything, everybody using online remote working and video conferencing and whatnot, so the data usage is growing astronomically. I suppose it's an industry that once you break into it, it's a good industry to be in, and I suppose we win a lot of repeat work through just our reputation to follow our clients across Europe as they expand, and we have the ability to mobilize quickly and rapidly deliver projects for our clients wherever they go.
And how did you get that first breakthrough? How did you get that first breakthrough, Kevin, with the first client, which then gives you the track record that enables you to follow that client or win business from other clients elsewhere?
Absolutely, yeah. Like our first large international contract was one that we won in Netherlands back in 2015, and at the time we were a really small Irish company, and it was a big win for us at the time. But we went and we delivered the project. It was challenging. It was a big project, and we had lots of challenges regarding setting up and mobilizing people locally to the Netherlands and whatnot. Very, very short time period, but we delivered the project really successfully, and on the back of that, we've won several other projects with that client. But then, all importantly as well, we gained that reputation as a company who could deliver internationally. So yeah, we're working for multiple clients in multiple countries throughout Northern Europe, and expecting to move more towards Southern Europe as the data center industry moves more towards African market as well.
Okay. Julie, it's interesting when you look at the four companies here, they're not in the consumer business. They are selling into global markets in areas that are growing. And I think you said in the presentation that based on sales expectations, around 56% of companies surveyed expected to increase sales in 2021. But are we seeing two economies here, different sectors experiencing very different realities?
Well, undoubtedly, when you look at the statistics from the feedback from clients, a third have seen their exports increase and a third have seen their exports decrease, and then there's another third that have remained quite static. So I think it differs within sectors. I mean, if you take something like food, there's obviously been a difference between retail and food service. Across the world, it depends on the sector and the market. I suppose the common denominator in all of the companies here in the panel is innovation, and it's not just innovation in the product or service, but also in the business model. And if Nicola's talking about, she's focusing on sales and marketing and research and development, and then subcontracting out the manufacturing. So each company has developed the appropriate response here for their product and market.
And that question of innovation, Tim and Nicola, I think it's interesting. In both of your cases, the business originally did something different to what it is doing now. I mean, you were saying, Tim, that the employee share platform that you have was from about 2015 on, but prior to that, the business was in other things, wasn't it?
Yeah, we started off life as a service company and realised you couldn't scale a service company from West Cork. You couldn't scale it globally from West Cork. So we had to pivot the company and change it to have a global platform and to become a global broker. And that's what we did. We launched in 2015, and to be honest, we haven't looked back.
And Nicola, in your case, you would have spent a number of years involved in sort of R&D consultancy, research consultancy, before doing what you're doing now. What changed?
Well, nothing changed. It just took us a long time to realise our strategy, which was always, we were building to be a product company. We wanted to emulate Syngenta Bayer BASF. That was the dream right from the beginning. So we had to learn capability. So we built capability in the product development side of agrochemicals. And step by step, we learned by doing for others. And then, very considerately and purposefully, we pivoted the business model and, saying goodbye to our big contract clients, big multinationals, to avoid the conflict of interest of competing with them. And we managed really successfully to do that pivot. And as I said, again, like Tim, we wanted to scale. We want to be global. We want to have a multinational in Ireland where scientists get to be scientists and, supply chain gets to be global and finance gets to be global. So why not? Why can't, and based and built on the best of Irish scientists. So I'm really proud to be on that journey. So nothing changed. It just maybe took us far too long.
Before you did it. John Power, we talk about innovation. How important is innovation for Aerogen? And tell us a little bit about some of the new products and new ideas you're working on at the moment.
Yeah, well, I'm an engineer myself. That's always worked in design engineering and my career. And so it's at the heart of our business. We aren't the number one in the world in the field we're in, other than the fact we have the best technology. I mean, the multinationals no more than Nicola. They utilize your products and services because you give them a better service or product than anybody else. No other reason. So innovation is key. R&D is key. We have a big team of research scientists, R&D, electronics, software, mechanical engineers. And we keep developing new products, new iterations of product, and diversify across the hospital. But probably the biggest move Aerogen have made is into funding our own drug trials. And we have 2 drugs now in trial globally. We're in phase 2B trials in the US for a surfactant, which is a drug for premature babies, which is a really fantastic. We think we could have one of the biggest impacts in neonatal care for the last 50 years there. So, yeah, R&D and keep moving up the chain. But again, like Nicola, you want to be your own boss. You don't want to be reliant on necessarily others. The way you do that is you innovate and have the best products in the world.
Kevin, what about you? How important is innovation? You guys are obviously busy building data centres. sometimes in unusual places, even in the Arctic Circle, I believe, up in Sweden. But you've got to find the time to innovate and offer new things.
Absolutely, yeah. That's something, construction companies traditionally, it's a very inefficient industry in comparison to other industries. So we've spent a lot of time innovating. We've invested heavily a few years ago in our off-site manufacturing facility, I suppose, where we see, the future of high-tech construction is bringing it back into a factory environment. So we have a team dedicated to, trying to innovate new ways of constructing facilities or portions of facilities off-site in a factory, and it's never more important than now with COVID, so because it's more difficult to move people around to construction projects all over Europe. Like you mentioned, we have projects up in Sweden and Finland and very remote locations, so it's great to bring it back into a factory environment. For example, we've just delivered a BSL-3 vaccine laboratory for a multinational client, and we built the entire facility in our factory and designed it and constructed it in our factory, tested the full building, and then shipped it out and constructed on site in 10 days. And that allows our client to get to market probably a year quicker than they would traditionally. So it's very important for us to be continually innovating and looking at better and more efficient and quicker ways of delivering projects for our clients.
Julie.
I mean, innovation is important for each of the four panel members, but actually what is coming across really strongly is the importance of ambition. And, if you don't have, Tim set out at the start that he wants to be the first unicorn in West Cork, right? Nicola, again, talking about scaling a company. Kevin and John, the same thing. And without that real ambition in terms of deciding they're going to go for it. And lots of, one of the big challenges we have is not having sufficient Irish companies of scale. So each of the panel members here this morning has a very clear view. They want to be in control of their destiny, and they really want to have a very strong strategy to build a company of scale in Ireland. And it's great to see that done both in Dublin and in the regions.
Around the country. And it's interesting as well, Tim, and to all of you, you're involved in competing around the world for business. So you're out there, which, if all goes well, the opportunities are enormous. But tell me a bit about your competitors, and you obviously aren't afraid of them.
So for me, my competitors are all global banks. They're huge companies: Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, UBS, Schwab. So Global Shares is very different. Global Shares is an entrepreneurial company that can move a lot faster, a lot quicker. So we don't have the big brand, but we do have the speed to market, a great team, and we don't have the legacy platforms that some of these big banks suffer from. So that's how we compete. And when we can't compete with them, we partner with them.
Nicola, what about you? How are you beating your competitors?
Richard, because we don't see the multinationals as our competitors. Really, our competitors are the generic companies, and the big ones of those are about 2 and 3, 4 billion in size. And what they thought, I grew up in this generic agrochemical industry, and our generic competitors think that the best scientists are the multinational scientists. So they recruit all the multinational scientists in. And what they get then is kind of, they build from first principles, they de-risk, they over-engineer their registration dossiers, and they spend a huge amount of money. The last 1% of risk costs you 99% of the money to mitigate. And what they do then, they do all that, big investments, but yet without the returns of new molecules. So their business model is flawed from the get-go. And I'm waiting, when this paper money market bubble bursts, they'll fall down in the middle and we'll rise from the ashes, because I really believe we're a purist. And whilst we've reverse engineered an identical Coca-Cola recipe, and so our products are identical at a molecular level to the multinationals' products, we've done that without the cost. And we can, so we can be fast, very broad scope. It's a platform. It's like a 3D digital printing platform that spits out clones of the multinational products, and we can really we can be really competitive, and we're not relying on highly leveraged paper money.
You've seen the gap, Nicola, and you're going right through it. John Power, what about you? You're out there. Your first customers, you would have had a look at America instead of looking necessarily on your own doorstep because of the industry you're in. How do you beat your competitors?
Yeah, I guess somewhat different strategy than Nicola. We created a market space. I mean, the drug delivery, aerosol drug delivery. I used to design ventilators. That's where I worked for some years, and realized there was no effective way to deliver drugs to ventilated patients. I mean, if you imagine a ventilated patient is intubated, so that cuts off oral drugs and from the patient. So really you end up with IV drugs often being given for lung conditions. So I set off to really create a new market space. And when you do that, if you're prepared to put the work in and the innovation in at the front end research, create a new market, we don't really have competitors as such. Our competitors, I would say, are IV drug delivery systems, because we see a lot of drugs that would be given IV inefficiently will be moved to aerosol delivery for those patients.
Okay. Well, I'm afraid we're out of time. I'm going to have to wrap it up there. My thanks to Tim, to Nicola, to John, and to Kevin, and also to Julie. And that's all we have time for this morning. I hope you have enjoyed this launch of International Markets Week by Enterprise Ireland. Do make the most of the schedule of events. There's a lot going on there. There are a lot of meetings set up, so make the most of those that are out there. We are living in very uncertain and challenging times, but I think we've also seen, on the other hand, that there are companies there that have been well able to manage and work through those very successfully. So thank you for tuning in, and good luck.
So this is it. The new normal. The world is a different place right now. We're living through strange times, where things are changing faster than we can fathom, and things we took for granted are anything but certain. We all have to adapt our mindset, our means, our imagination. And Irish companies are leading the way, innovating, exploring, responding, turning adversity into opportunity. Sure, our circumstances have changed, but some things remain constant. Ireland has always lived out here on the edge, so it's in our nature to push boundaries. We've learned to be nimble, to be agile, always reliable, always resilient, always ready. Enterprise Ireland continues to invest in the very best of Irish innovation. And our network of advisors are busy connecting global business leaders with dynamic Irish partners, so that together we can make this new normal a better one. We are ready for a new world.